Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansu, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show for you guys, but before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my name is Charles Tabansi. My handle is CTABANZ. If you want to follow the channel, send me the channel on Instagram, Dreamers Pro. And also, if you want today's full show before it comes out on YouTube, it is streaming for free on the Dreamers Pro podcast. We have pinned in the comments below. Anyway, let me get into this topic here. Now, this is a topic or a kind of show that we have never produced. So it's a 100% experimental. It's my first time doing it. Usually, whenever we produce shows, we're reacting to things that prominent voices in sports media say. And also we're reacting to various publications, various articles, various websites, etc. But we have never reacted to a show that was produced by a fellow YouTuber. Now, I'm sure all of you know who JX My High Roller is, and I've always mispronounced his name for years. Marco tries to correct me every single time. But all of you know who JX My High Roller is. He's arguably the biggest independent NBA content creator in the United States. If you Google top NBA channels, sports channels, JX My High Roller is going to be up there without a doubt, right? His videos have gone viral. A lot of his videos, if not almost all of his videos, get at least 1 million views, 800,000 views. So he's a very, very big deal. Last time I looked at his channel, he has about 2 million subscribers. So he's huge, right? Very, 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 very big. And I'm sure all of you have seen his content, have come across his content at one point or another. So what happened this morning? I was going through the analytics of the channel, and sometimes, you know, I go through various comments. I usually go through as many comments as I can. I can't respond to all of them, obviously. But today, I saw a comment that one of our viewers posted. Now, essentially, the comment was the following. Yesterday, we produced this show that was reacting to the comments that Steve Kerr made about the way the NBA is being officiated in terms of the game and how they're officiating out defense and making it a more offense-oriented game and how players are taking advantage of it, and he doesn't like that, right? So we were reacting to the comments of Steve Kerr. So I woke up this morning and I saw someone, I'm assuming one of our viewers, said, at JX My High Roller, watch this video. And I was like, I'm confused, right? So I was like, what is this viewer talking about? Why would he at JX My High Roller here? So I go over to his channel, right? I go over to his channel and I noticed that he had produced a video, and I think at the time that I saw it, that video had been out for, let me say, oh man, I want to say about 24 hours or so, 24 hours plus. And the video had the following headline. It said, "Are NBA players getting too good at basketball?" That was the title. In the thumbnail, you had, you know, a bunch of players from 2024 and a bunch of players from 2004, 20-year time span, and they had all of them. They had all of them in that thumbnail. Interestingly enough, I'm noticing that LeBron is not in that thumbnail, which is quite interesting. That he didn't have LeBron in the 2004 image. So I click on the show, and it's a very long show. It's about 16 minutes or so, and of course, is produced with the utmost care, excellent quality there. So I go through it, and I was trying to get the gist of what he was talking about, and essentially, he was essentially saying that the reason that we're seeing the type of scoring, or at least the section that I'm focusing on this show, from what he said, the reason we're seeing this type of scoring in the league is becoming better and more efficient is because players are becoming more efficient at scoring the basketball, right? So what we want to do is we want to play some of his points today. We're going to take our time. We're going to be on here 4 minutes. What we want to do is we actually want to get into some of the points that he made in his show, and then we're going to come back here. But before we even get into that, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, Aura. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is today? It's identity theft. Imagine trying to log into your email only to see that your password has been changed. Then you start getting weird notifications from your bank and credit cards only to find out that all of your personal and sensitive information has been totally compromised. If you think it can happen to you and your family, just know that in 2020, over 49 million Americans were victims to identity theft, costing them a combined $56 billion. That is why we are excited to partner with Aura, who's the sponsor of this video. Aura is the #1 identity theft and financial fraud protection. Aura monitors the dark web and alerts you if any of your passwords and accounts have been breached. And funny enough, after using Aura, I discovered some of my credentials were floating around in the dark web, and the app showed me exactly when and where the breach happened. In addition, Aura allows you to set spending alerts, and they'll notify you of any suspicious transactions. Aura is 4 times faster than any of its competitors in alerting you if someone is trying to open a credit card or obtain a loan using your name. And remember this, every 14 seconds someone becomes a victim of identity fraud. Don't let it happen to you. Now click the link in the description and try Aura for free for 2 weeks and see if any of you or your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial at aura.com/DREAMERSPRO. And when you try Aura, by using the link in the description below, also know that you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what JX My High Roller had to say, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. So take a listen to what he had to say there.
But I say all of this to emphasize just how much scoring in the NBA has exploded and shows no signs of slowing down. NBA offenses in today's league are really, really good. Back in 2015, the Golden State Warriors reshaped what a potent, efficient offense looks like and led the league that season with an offensive rating of 111.6. This season, that same offense would rank 26th in the league, only ahead of 4 atrociously bad teams. A decade ago, in 2014, the league saw a combined 24 occurrences of teams scoring at least 130 points in a single game. This season, there have already been 85 occurrences of teams scoring at least 130 points. And the league as a whole is on pace to have about 265 of these games by the end of the season. That's more than 10 times more than the league had back in 2014. Now, a lot of fans assume that the insane point totals we're seeing around the league today are simply a byproduct of stat inflation. The game is faster, no one cares about defense, every other shot is a three-pointer. But it's not just inflation. Inflation would assume that it's just the volume that's changing, that there are more things happening within every game and that's what's leading to the influx in numbers. But it's not that. Other than the dead ball era, right now is a pretty average time in the league in terms of pace and shots. It is the efficiency and simply how good players have gotten that has really skyrocketed.
So you heard what he had to say, right? You heard what he had to say. And I want to take my time with this because I have a lot of thoughts. And I seldom do shows where I do notes. Whenever I do notes, it means that I have a lot of thoughts and I want to get off my chest in a concise, coherent way. So one of the answers he gave, or the central answer he gave as to why scoring is happening at the rate at which it's happening in terms of from an efficiency standpoint, is that players are just better at scoring because they are better today, right? And to me, the problem with that is that's not a good answer. That's not a good answer, because if you say they're better, then anyone that's listening attentively will then ask the following question: how? They're better in what particular way? And whenever you pose that type of question to a statement like that, you're usually going to get one or two answers. The first set of answers are going to be players today are faster, stronger, smarter, which is something that cannot be proven, by the way. So therefore, that's the reason why they're better. The second answer is no answer. They have no answer. It's just you're looking at something. You can't really formulate an answer as to why this thing is happening in front of you. And so therefore, you say it's better because you're looking at all of the things in front of you. I think what's happening is JX My High Roller is basically attributing all of this efficiency that we're seeing today to how much better these guys are, when instead he should be attributing a lot of what we're seeing today to the changes in the rules. And really that's at the heart, I believe, of what we're seeing. And also, one of the reasons why we see a shift in the way basketball is being played is because of a general philosophy in basketball that has been held for God knows how long, which is simply this: the NBA is a copycat league. That's the fact of the matter. As someone that was a Kobe Bryant fan, as someone that witnessed that 3-year run when the Lakers went to the finals 3 times in a row, at a certain point in the NBA, it was commonplace to have 2 twin towers. What do I mean by that? In your starting 5, it was normal to have 2 7-footers. And if you had 2 7-footers, chances are you were going to be a very dominant team. If you go back and look at those Lakers teams, especially the ones that were going to the finals 3 years in a row, they had a formula. They had Pau Gasol, they had Kobe Bryant, they had what's his name? Andrew Bynum. Those were 2 7-footers. Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum were 2 7-footers. And they were a lethal combo on either side of the block. And then, of course, you had Lamar Odom, who was 6'10". Then you had Kobe, who would sometimes play the 3 or the 4. Then you had Kobe Bryant, who was 6'6". So the Lakers had a lot of size. You had Ron Artest, who was 6'8". You had Trevor Ariza, who was 6'7". And the league saw that the Lakers were experiencing a lot of success playing that style of ball. And then other teams started to copy them. It was quite standard for an NBA roster to have a 7-footer on it, or multiple 7-footers. That was commonplace. So at that time, teams started to try to copy that. Then what happened? The Golden State Warriors came into play. You had the advent of this small ball that Mike D'Antoni was trying to implement, where you had this run and gun 3 seconds or less offense. Mike D'Antoni tried to pull it off with Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns. It never quite worked, but they were onto something. Then Steve Kerr and these guys, after Mark Jackson and all of these guys, you saw the Golden State Warriors coming with Stephen Curry and all of that. And you saw how for the very first time in NBA history, teams were living by the jump shot. Usually they say you die by the jump shot, but in this case, you were living by the jump shot. And teams started to get success with the Golden State Warriors. And then other teams around the NBA said, well, this is the formula that's currently working right now, so we're going to copy it. And then what happened was every team around the NBA started to try to copy the Golden State Warriors. And the team that did it the best was the Houston Rockets, but they could never get over the hump in the NBA playoffs against the Golden State Warriors. And there was this famous kind of quote that Charles Barkley had on TNT, where he essentially said, all of these teams trying to go out there and turn into the Warriors and build their roster like the Warriors are forgetting one fundamental thing. They don't have Draymond Green, they don't have Stephen Curry, and they don't have Klay Thompson in particular. Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson are widely regarded as to be 2 of the top 5 greatest shooters in the history of the sport. So Charles Barkley was saying, if you can try as much as you want to have a roster like that, but if you don't have that type of personnel, it's not going to work. And that's the reason why that's the only team that has actually worked for. That's the only team that it's worked for. So we have to factor in the fact that the NBA is a copycat league, and it's one of the reasons why they say Stephen Curry changed the game. Because now you have so many players within the league opting to shoot more threes, and now teams are beginning to follow suit, which gets us to the next point. After most teams tried to imitate the Golden State Warriors, you'll realize that the Golden State Warriors were really the only team that had that type of success playing that particular style. But let's get back to the original point. The reason I believe, and I think that JX Mahirola didn't put enough of an emphasis on it, the reason I believe we're seeing the NBA turn into what it's turning into today in terms of all of these quote-unquote efficient, accurate scores is because the NBA right now has made a concerted effort to de-emphasize defense. That's what they've done. And if you don't believe me, what we want to do is play a quick audio of current head coach, arguably the greatest head coach in this era, Steve Kerr, explaining exactly how the NBA has gone about doing this. So take a listen to what Steve Kerr had to say here, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to that.
How did you feel you guys played in general?
I thought we played okay. I think we can play better for sure. I thought the ball didn't always move like it could have. We only had 23 assists. Didn't shoot it particularly well. But you go on the road against the defending champs. You got to play your A game, and we didn't play our A game.
Jokic finished with 18 free throws. I mean, you guys were clearly upset with some of the calls.
Yeah.
Just what did you think about how big a factor was the way he was today?
Yeah, I have no problem with the officials themselves. They're all across the league. We have really good officials. I have a problem with the way we are legislating defense out of the game. That's what we're doing in the NBA. The way we're teaching the officials, we're just enabling players to BS their way to the foul line. If I were a fan, I wouldn't have wanted to watch the second half of that game. It was disgusting. It was just baiting refs into the calls, but the refs have to make those calls because that's how they're taught. So I have a real problem with the way we've legislated defense out of the game in this league, and the players are really smart in this league. And for over the last decade or so, they've gotten smarter and smarter, and they're just we have enabled the players, and they are taking full advantage, and it's a parade to the free throw line, and it's disgusting to watch.
So you heard what Steve Kerr had to say. Good. Now I want to address the larger notion that somehow NBA players today are getting better, because it's something that I fundamentally do not believe. I believe that there are certain skill sets that are being emphasized more and others that are being de-emphasized. Now their teams are putting a premium on players that can shoot threes, players that can run the floor, and players that can provide a lot of spacing. And this particular skill is being looked for even in big men. If you're a big man in the NBA today, if you cannot stretch the floor, you will not be valuable. That's what teams are looking for. But a lot of people, and I think JX Mahirola is trying to make the same point, that somehow players are better today. But there's only one problem. There's only one problem. As you guys know, I'm a Kobe Bryant fan. I think Kobe Bryant is one of the smartest basketball players to ever play the sport. Certainly one of the most articulate ones in terms of explaining his ideas and explaining the game. And before Kobe retired, as you guys know, Kobe decided to become a teacher. He had Kobe Bryant, he had his academy where he would train professional athletes, young kids, and things like that. But Kobe also made a concerted effort to go out there and explain the reason why AAU is destroying the new crop of players coming up in the NBA circus today. And he also went on ESPN First Take and spoke about the problems he was witnessing at the time in the way a lot of the NBA players are being reared. And he thought that, or he said that at the time, that we're doing a major disservice to our young players with the way that we're training them, because none of them are learning how to play basketball properly. So for those of you who don't remember Kobe Bryant discussing this very issue, we want to play exactly what Kobe had to say here about AAU and then about the direction in which the NBA was going in, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Kobe Bryant had to say here.
Kobe, you've been pretty critical of the AAU system and the way American players are brought up.
Not pretty critical. I'm extremely critical. I hate it. Because it doesn't teach our players how to play the right way. How to think the game, how to play in combinations of threes. I think everything is it's a reward system. I think coaches who are teaching the game are getting rewarded one fashion or another, and it's just a showcase.
Do you feel like
it's absolutely horrible for the game?
The young guys that are coming up, do you feel like the game is kind of stiff, whereas when your guys were more skilled?
Yeah, but I think that was just by luck in the generation that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Because like my generation is when the AAU basketball really started becoming. And I got lucky because I grew up in Europe.
Right.
Everything there was still fundamental. So I learned all the basics. And I think we're doing a tremendous disservice to our young basketball players right now. That's something that definitely needs to be fixed, and it's going to be one of the things that I definitely focus on.
What are you seeing when you watch today's game? We got issues where we're questioning guys getting rest, taking rest, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what do you see when you watch today's game?
Well, I mean, listen, the game has grown substantially. The age of social media has really altered or grown the amount of opinions that we have available to the game. So as a result, you have a wide-ranging opinion on one issue, which is fine. But I think at the core of it all is the game itself. So if players are continuing to get better, that's what's most important. Now, in terms of the development of players, I feel like that has completely gone backwards. And it starts at a very, at the youth level and growing up through AAU and so forth and so on. We're not teaching our kids the fundamentals of the game. We're not teaching them how to think the game. And that's a bigger issue. All the other things that surround the game will come and go. But the game itself is the most.
Kobe, is that really a bigger issue, or are you as an outlier? Like, you had a very well-rounded game, but not everyone did. There were a lot of bums compared to you then, just as there are now compared to the best players. Are you the old-timer now looking back and going, in my day, everyone knew the game? That was just you. Or do you really think it's gone backwards in that way?
No, it has. I mean, you know, our development in USA basketball, you can just look at that on the surface and the difficulty and the challenges that we face in playing international competitions. So when I grew up and growing up overseas in Italy, I was very fortunate because I caught the teaching time in Europe. So, you know, the Red Holtzmans, the Tex Winners, and all these great coaches at the time went over to Europe to teach coaches, have coaching clinics of how to train players. So when I was growing up, I caught the fundamentals of that game. Right? Pau Gasol, Manu Ginobili, you know, same thing. And so you look at the difficulty that we have had in international competition is because these players learn how to play the game and think the game at all levels. Pau Gasol, just as comfortable handling the ball as he is in the post. Marc Gasol, right? You look at San Antonio Spurs and the way that they move the ball. And so we have to do a better job developing our players.
So you heard what Kobe had to say. Kobe pointed out a very serious issue that we're beginning to see play out today. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later on in the show to prove to you why Kobe Bryant was on to something. I want to give you guys some more information here. I want to compare something for you guys. I want us to look at the 1998 All-Star game, and I want us to compare it to the 2022 All-Star game. In 1998, the NBA had the All-Star game, and I believe it was in New York, if I'm not mistaken. And the score was 135 to 114. And I think the East won that game. I can actually verify this information here. Let me just see it here. Yes, the Eastern Conference won that game, right? So the Eastern Conference won that game back in 1998. In 2022, the NBA also held another All-Star game. And the following score, and the game finished with the score of 163 to 160. And you're like, man, my God, the winning side scored 30 more points. The other side scored 160 points. These guys must be very efficient at scoring the basketball like we have never seen before. I mean, look at the number of points that they're able to put up in an All-Star game. That's if you didn't watch. That's if you didn't watch. But if you look at that, you'll say, oh my God. Let me give you guys some more data. In that 1998 All-Star game, get this. Only one player, let me repeat it once more. Only one player on either team scored 22 or more points. I'll repeat it one more time for you. In the 1998 All-Star game, you can go back and look at the box score. Only one player on either team scored at least 22 points, and that player was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, playing for the Eastern Conference, scored 23 points with 8 assists and 6 rebounds. He led the entire game in scoring. Now, I want to go over some of the players and what they scored in last year's 2022 game. In last year's game, we had 5 players to score at least 20. We had 3 players to score at least 30. And we had 1 player who scored 50 points in an All-Star game, and that player was one Stephen Curry. So let me ask you guys a question. Given the scores that we saw, given the volume of points that these guys are scoring, are we going to say that the reason they're doing that is because they're so much more talented at scoring and better at scoring? Is that the reason we're going to attribute it to that? Because, well, look at the scores that they're putting up. In 1998, you could barely get a 30-point game, and now You got guys dropping 50-point games and 30-plus point games all in an all-star game. Now, if you said that, I got some information for you that I want to share with you. Let me give you some of the names that participated in that 1998 game. Let me give you some of the names. Grant Hill. If you know anything about basketball, you know Grant Hill was supposed to be like the next Michael Jordan until he got injured. Grant Hill was an incredible basketball player. The game had Grant Hill, Michael Jordan, Antoine Walker, Gary Payton. I don't know, some chap, some bloke that scored a lot of points in NBA history. Karl Malone played in that game. Who? I wonder who he is. Kevin Garnett played in that game. Tim Duncan played in that game. Who's another guy that scored a few points in the NBA? Shaq played in that game. Oh, who's another player that scored a lot of points in that game and scored a lot of points in his NBA career? Kobe Bryant played in that game. I just mentioned a list of players that all of us know, and out of the top 10 players currently in the all-time scoring list, 4 of them played in that game. I'll repeat it once more. Out of the top 10 players in terms of scoring in NBA history, 4 of them participated in that all-star game. And Shaq, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, and Michael Jordan. So it wasn't like as if there was no talent, unless you are ready to stand up and say that the talent pool that we had in the all-star game in 2022 is greater than the talent pool we had in 1998, then you can stand on that bridge by yourself while they light it on fire. Because I'm not going to be standing next to you with that madness. Now, let me give you guys the combined scoring titles between the players I just listed on that 1998 team. Of all those players on that 1998 team, they have 14 scoring titles together. On the current on last year's team, they had 9 total scoring titles on that team. And two of the 3 players that were on the 1998 team have at one point in their career, had 2 of the 3 highest regular season scoring averages in the past 36 years. That would be Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Those were the guys that were playing. Now, if you're telling me that we have players in today's NBA that could score the bucket better than Kobe Bryant, then all I'll ask you to, and Kobe and Michael Jordan, all I'll ask you to do is enlighten me. That's all I'll ask you to do. I'll just say, please list these people that were on the level in terms of scoring like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. You won't find one. Right? So let's continue on. I think it's important that we properly define this thing about are players today more advanced? Somebody asked me in the comment section, what do you mean by advanced? And I wrote, I mean advanced in whatever way that the people, the proponents of it, throw it out. Now, I want to give you guys some more. I want to play another audio for you. For those of you guys who believe that we're witnessing the greatest form of basketball that we have ever seen, because this is the most talented pool of players we have ever seen with the highest IQs ever, what I'd like to do is I'd like to play a quick audio of NBA championship head coach Mike Malone, who coached last year's All-Star team. And I want to play exactly what he had to say about the brand of basketball that he witnessed last year in the All-Star game. And then we're gonna come back. It's only a 40-second clip. Take a listen to what Mike Malone had to say about this great basketball that we're witnessing right now in the NBA. Take a listen to what he had to say there.
The amount of points that your team surrendered, is that going to leave a scar for you?
It's going to form over the scar that was formed in Charlotte back in 2019. You know, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be a part of a great weekend, great players, but that is the worst basketball game ever played.
How do you fix it?
I don't know if you can fix it. I mean, I give Joel Embiid, Kyrie Irving, those guys were like competing. Joel was imploring some of the guys to play harder, to try to get some defense in, but no one got hurt. They put on a show for the fans, but that is a tough game to sit through, I'm not going to lie.
So that's what Mike Malone had to say. That's the current reigning NBA championship coach. He said that was the worst basketball game he had ever seen in his life. But I asked the question, how could that be possible? How could you have just witnessed the worst basketball game in the history of the sport when we're watching the most advanced players to ever play basketball? Clearly, there's a disconnect, or it means that narratives are not connecting. And let me give you guys the final proof of why I believe we're witnessing actually a regression. Yes, I went as far as saying a regression. Some of you may think that's harsh. Let me give you guys some information here. The final proof of this regression that I believe we're witnessing took place in last year's FIBA World Cup. Oh, y'all forgot about that. Y'all thought we forgot about that. Let me give you guys some information. Are you guys aware, or do you remember that this current crop of NBA players, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread? Do you realize that they were so great that in the FIBA games, they couldn't even medal? Meaning they didn't get the gold medal, they didn't get the silver medal, they didn't even get the bronze medal. They finished 4th place. A team comprised of American players who all play in the NBA could not even win a single medal in the World Games. A single medal. Now, let me give you some of the players on that team that represent the present and the future of the NBA. On that team, you had Paolo Banchero, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Brandon Ingram, Jared Jackson Jr., who just won the Defensive Player of the Year, Anthony Edwards, who some people are trying to compare him to Michael Jordan, Austin Reeves, and Cam Johnson. And that was the final result, but it doesn't end there. Let me give you guys the coaching staff. The head coach of that team was Steve Kerr. The assistant head coach was Tyronn Lue. These are all championship head coach, 5 championships between those 2 head coaches. And of course, you have Eric Spoelstra, who's also, I believe, won a championship, if I'm not mistaken. Those were the coaches on that roster. And somehow they were not able to translate this outer worldly talent into the greatest basketball team, at least in the FIBA Cup we have ever seen. Now, here's what happened. This is how pathetic it got. You see, the proponents of this is the greatest era ever, when they saw that result, do you know what they reached for? Do you know what they reached for? They said, oh, no. The reason that we didn't win is because we didn't send our A team. I got you now. Did LeBron go? Did Kevin Durant go? Did Stephen Curry go? Players don't come from this era. Those players don't come from... LeBron comes from 2003. Let me look at the year Kevin Durant was drafted. Hold up a second, because y'all trying to play some games that we're not playing with. When was Kevin Durant... Hold up, we got to figure this out. Durant drafted. Kevin Durant was drafted in 2007. When was, let's see, Stephen Curry drafted? Stephen Curry was drafted in 2009. You're talking about 14 years ago. Are we really going to say that those guys came from this era? Those guys are on their way out. Paul George and all of these guys came from the previous era. So you can't count them. You saying you're sending your best is saying you're sending your last result, your last hope. And this is the current state of affairs we find the NBA finds itself in. And you guys are trying to tell me that we're watching something out of worldly? The fact of the matter is this: the NBA don't play defense. Period. End of story. They do not play defense. There's freedom of movement. And this NBA, even a 6'10" guy could play the 5 position. And it's basically one big chuckathon. That's the reason why you see teams averaging over 34.9 3-point attempts per game. 34.9. It's a 3-point shooting contest and a layup line. And if the game is that wide open, you're not playing defense, you're emphasizing the 3, obviously, defense won't be a factor and you're going to see inflated numbers. Has nothing to do with the fact they're more skilled. Because when it came time to play an organized game, in an international competition, they could not compete. Hear it well. The current crop of NBA players, when sent to an international stage, they could not compete. And do you know who had enough sense to realize what was coming? One Kobe Bryant. He said eventually this would catch up, and now the chickens have come home to roost. And y'all want to tell me that because if we pull up some stats that reinforce a particular bias that's not being questioned properly, you're going to tell me that all of a sudden, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that we're... I don't believe it. None of this evidence and none of these arguments are sufficient for me, at least. I'm sorry. Because if you present a particular set of information for me, I'm going to scrutinize it with some questions. And if I see it begins to fall apart, and a lot of what you're saying is based on assumptions like players today are faster and smarter, and you cannot quantify that, then you lose me. These are my thoughts. Shout out, these are my thoughts. I can barely talk videos. So shout out to JX My High Roller. Keep making excellent content. And it was an absolute pleasure reacting to that show that you produced today. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you'd like us to produce similar shows like this in the future, whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you on the next show. Peace.